I saw something huge move in the tall grass, and then I heard a choking sound I'll never forget. It was late afternoon. The sun was low enough to burn orange through the trees, and I had wandered off the trail, something I'd promised myself I wouldn't do after what happened with the wild hogs last month. But I needed firewood, and the good branches were always deeper in. That's when I heard it. A low, deep rasp, like someone gasping for air through a wet rag. Then a violent thrashing. I crouched, heart already slamming in my chest. The movement in the brush wasn't human. Whatever it was big. I stepped closer, pushing back a curtain of fern leaves. That's when I saw them. A giant python, coiled like a mussel from hell, was wrapped around something struggling beneath it. Fur, claws, a long tail. A cougar. No, a pregnant cougar. Her belly was round and swollen, her back legs kicking weakly. Her mouth gaped open, but no sound came out now. Just the whites of her eyes and the slow, horrific tightening of the snake around her body. Everything in me screamed to run. This wasn't my fight. It wasn't my place. But then her paw reached out, like a hand, scrabbling in the dirt, desperate, trying to grab anything. I looked down. A thick branch lay near my foot. I don't remember making the decision. I just remember the yell that tore from my throat as I grabbed the branch with both hands and charged. The python didn't react at first. I slammed the branch down on its midsection, once, twice, and on the third strike, it released its hold just enough for the cougar to suck in a loud, broken breath. But then it turned. Its head whipped toward me, mouth open, those dead eyes locking onto mine. I stepped back, raised the branch again, and swung hard at its head. It hit with a wet crack, but the python surged forward, striking at my leg. I jumped back, stumbled, felt its weight crash into my shin. Pain. Blinding, hot pain. The cougar made a sound then. A weak growl. She was alive. Still breathing. I had to finish this. I took one more swing, right at the head. The snake recoiled, stunned. I used those seconds to pull the cougar back by her front legs, dragging her out of the coils. She didn't fight me. She just lay there, sides heaving, eyes flickering. The python didn't follow. It slithered away into the brush, slow, wounded, but not dead. I sat there panting, hands shaking, blood running down my shin where its tail or teeth had caught me. I didn't even know. The cougar blinked. Her ears twitched. She was trying to lift her head, but she couldn't. I whispered, "It's okay. You're safe now." Why I said that, I don't know. Maybe to calm myself. Maybe to believe it. I stayed there with her for I don't know how long. 10 minutes? Half an hour? The sky turned red, then purple. When I finally stood, I didn't know what to do. I couldn't carry her. I couldn't leave her. But the forest would soon be crawling with scavengers. I ripped off part of my flannel and dabbed at the blood around her neck. She flinched but didn't run. Then, out of nowhere, she let out a sound, a low, rumbling breath like a sigh of pain. And then, she closed her eyes. I thought she'd died. I sat back down, too numb to panic, just staring at her, wondering what I had done, if I had saved her or only prolonged her pain. But then I saw it. A twitch, a breath, the slow, steady rise and fall of her ribs. She was alive. I looked around the clearing, the blood, the broken brush, the signs of struggle, and then back at her. I knew I had to leave her, but something in me whispered I'd see her again. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I woke up with that sick weight in my stomach, like I'd dreamt something terrible but couldn't remember what. Then I saw the dried blood on my pants, and it all came rushing back. The python, the cougar, her belly, swollen with life. My hands shaking as I dragged her limp body out of that death grip. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. What if I'd made it worse? What if I'd interfered with something I shouldn't have? I didn't eat breakfast. I just cleaned my leg, disinfected the wound, more bruised than cut, thank God, and packed a bottle of water. I had to go back. I had to know if she was still alive. The woods looked different now. Every rustle made me jump. My own footsteps felt too loud. I retraced my steps to the clearing, heart thudding. She was gone. The blood was still there. Drag marks, too, deep grooves in the soil. Something had moved her. I crouched low. The tracks were wide, padded. Puma tracks. But not just hers. I counted 3 sets. Maybe more. My mouth went dry. Had the pack come for her? Or for me? I turned around slowly. The forest behind me was still. Silent. Too silent. I left the clearing fast. Not running, but close to it. I kept looking over my shoulder, half expecting yellow eyes to appear between the trees. Back home, I locked the door. Like that would do anything if they really wanted to come. All day I paced. I kept checking the tree line from my kitchen window. My cabin's about 30 yards from the edge of the woods. It never felt far until now. Around dusk, I heard something. A sound I couldn't place. Not quite a growl, not quite a howl. More like a deep, vibrating cry. And it wasn't alone. Another joined it. Then another. I stepped onto the porch, barefoot. The sky was burning orange, the way it does right before night swallows everything. Silhouettes moved at the edge of the trees. Low, feline, watching. I backed into the house slowly. Shut the door. Didn't lock it. Just stood behind it, holding my breath. Nothing happened. No scratching, no thuds, no broken windows. Just silence. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak in the wood made my heart pound. I kept the flashlight beside the bed and the old hunting rifle under it, though I hadn't used that thing in years. At 2 in the morning, I heard something on the porch. A soft thump. Not heavy like a bear. Not light like a raccoon. Measured. Intentional. I crept toward the door. Lifted the curtain just an inch. Something was there. I saw fur. Not moving. Just placed. I waited a full minute, then 2, before I opened the door. There was a dead rabbit on my porch. Still warm. No bite marks. No blood. Just perfectly intact, laid out like a gift. I looked out toward the trees. Nothing. Darkness. I didn't know what to think. Was it a warning? A message? A thank you? I brought the rabbit inside. Wrapped it in a towel. I didn't know why. Maybe guilt. When I finally lay back down, it wasn't fear keeping me awake anymore. It was something stranger. Like I wasn't alone, but not in a threatening way. The next day, I walked the perimeter of my property. I found more tracks. Deep, fresh. Puma for sure. For different sets, maybe 5. They'd come close. Within 20 feet of my window. But they didn't cross the line. I don't know how animals think. I've heard the theories. That they remember kindness. That they understand more than we give them credit for. But part of me, the part that saw those eyes watching me in silence, part of me started to believe it. Later that evening, I burned a small fire in the pit out back. Not for heat. For comfort. And maybe for them. I left the rabbit meat just outside the tree line. No traps. No strings attached. In the morning, it was gone. The towel was folded neatly beside the tree. I couldn't stop thinking about the rabbit. The way it was laid out, like some kind of ritual. And the towel, folded. That detail kept nagging at me. Animals don't fold things. At least, not like that. By mid-morning, I gave up pretending I could get anything done. I packed a bottle of water, strapped on my boots, and whistled for my dog. Come on, Ranger, I said. Let's go find some answers. Ranger's a mutt, part shepherd, part who knows what. Smart, loyal, and protective to a fault. I'd rescued him from a ditch 2 years ago, and he'd been stuck to my side ever since. We headed back into the woods, this time with more caution. The air felt heavier somehow, like something was watching, even if I couldn't see it. When we reached the clearing where I'd fought the python, I stopped cold. The snake was still there, or what was left of it. The body was half-eaten. Flies circled it in thick clouds. But what stopped me wasn't the decay, it was the footprints around it. Puma prints. At least 5 sets, different sizes, different weights. They'd been back. Ranger growled low in his throat, his hackles rising. Easy, boy, I said, but my own voice trembled. We circled the carcass. The grass was flattened in places, like something heavy had lain there. I noticed claw marks in the dirt, deep ones. Whatever had happened here wasn't just scavenging. It felt like something else, like a warning, or maybe justice. I knelt, examining the prints more closely. One set led off into the trees alone, slightly smaller than the others. Was it her? The one I saved? We followed. The trail wasn't fresh, but it was clear. Ranger stayed close, sniffing the ground. Every few minutes he'd stop, growl, then move again. After about 30 minutes, I saw her. At first I thought it was a log. Then she turned her head. She was lying beneath a cluster of pines, half in shadow. Her belly was still large, but she looked stronger than before. Her eyes locked onto mine. Ranger barked, stiffening beside me. No, I said firmly, placing a hand on his collar. The cougar didn't move, just stared. I raised my hand slowly, palm out. I'm not here to hurt you. We stood like that for what felt like hours. Then she blinked, stood, and disappeared into the trees without a sound. Ranger pulled against the leash, but I held him. We weren't chasing her. On the way back, I kept glancing over my shoulder. That feeling, the one that someone was always watching, it hadn't left. It had only grown stronger. About 100 yards from the house, Ranger froze. His ears shot up, and he started growling again. I followed his gaze and saw her. Another cougar. Not the same one. This one was massive, with darker fur and a broader chest. He stood on a boulder just off the trail, watching us. He didn't move, didn't growl, just stared. I felt the hair on my arms stand up. "Let's go, Ranger," I whispered, tugging his leash. We got home without incident, but I couldn't shake the unease. 2 sightings in one day. Tracks all over my property. And the rabbit. That night, I double-checked every window, every lock. I fed Ranger early, then sat by the fire with a beer I didn't even finish. Around midnight, Ranger started barking like mad. I grabbed the flashlight and stepped onto the porch. The forest was still, but Ranger was pulling toward the left side of the property, near the shed. I followed. That's when I heard it, the guttural grunt of a wild boar. It charged out of the brush so fast I barely had time to react. I stumbled back, slipped on the wet grass. The boar came at me with its tusks low, eyes red in the beam of my flashlight. Ranger lunged, barking furiously, but he was too small to stop it. And then, a blur. Something huge hit the boar from the side. A flash of tan, claws, teeth. The boar screamed, thrashed, then went silent. I lay frozen on the ground, heart hammering. Ranger whined beside me. The cougar stood over the boar's body. Not the female, the big one. The male I'd seen earlier. He looked at me, just for a second, then vanished into the trees. I didn't sleep that night either. 3 days passed. I didn't step foot into the woods. I couldn't. Not after the boar. Not after that massive cougar saved me and disappeared without a sound. I stayed close to home, worked on the shed, pretended things were normal. But I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating much either. Ranger stuck to me like glue, more alert than usual. Every now and then, he'd perk up, ears twitching toward the trees like he could hear something I couldn't. Maybe he could. On the 3rd morning, I woke up with a tightness in my chest I couldn't ignore. Like unfinished business. Like something was calling me. I strapped on my boots again. Ranger whined low when he saw me grab the leash. "Not this time, buddy," I said, patting his head. "You stay here." His eyes followed me as I walked down the porch steps alone. The forest greeted me like an old secret. Familiar and unsettling. Light filtered through the canopy in golden beams, dust dancing in the air like spirits. I didn't know where I was going exactly. My feet led me. Past the creek, across the broken log, deeper than I'd gone before. About an hour in, I stopped. Everything was silent. Not birds. Not wind. Not even the buzz of insects. Then I saw it. A shape ahead. Then another. I turned. They were everywhere. At least 6 pumas surrounding me in a wide arc. Some standing, some crouched low, muscles tight under their coats. Their eyes were locked on me. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. My fingers twitched near my pocket knife, but I didn't move. If they wanted me dead, I wouldn't have seen them coming. So why were they showing themselves now? I turned slowly, trying not to make any sudden moves. The one closest to me, a younger one, smaller, took a step forward, then stopped. Its ears flicked, but it made no sound. Then they parted. Out from the undergrowth stepped the female. Her, the same cougar I had pulled from the coils of that python. She moved slowly, but not weakly. Her stride was full of purpose. And behind her, 2 cubs, wobbly on their legs, curious, unsure. They stayed close to her flanks, their wide eyes scanning everything. I felt tears sting the corners of my eyes. She walked toward me, not fast, not threatening, just steady. She stopped a few feet away. Her eyes met mine. She didn't growl, didn't hiss, just looked. Then, in a single fluid movement, she turned and walked past me. The cubs followed, then the others. One by one, they peeled away from their circle and disappeared into the trees. I stood there shaking. I don't know how long I remained like that. Maybe minutes, maybe more. Then my knees gave out. I sank to the forest floor, hands shaking, chest heaving. Not from fear, from something else. Something I couldn't name. I'd never felt smaller in my life. Not weak, just humbled. Like I'd been part of something far older, far bigger than myself. A ritual, a judgment, a goodbye, or maybe a thank you. I cried. Quietly. Not sobs. Just tears that wouldn't stop. Because in that moment, I realized I wasn't just a man who saved a cougar. I had been seen, and I would never be the same. A week passed. No signs. No tracks. No sounds. It was almost eerie how normal everything looked. The trees swayed the same way. The birds returned to their usual chatter. Even the breeze felt lighter. But I was not the same. Something in me had shifted. I couldn't explain it to anyone. Not that there was anyone to tell. I just went through the motions. Chopping wood, fixing the fence, walking ranger. But every time I passed that tree line, my eyes lingered. My thoughts stayed in the forest. Every night, I found myself standing on the porch, eyes fixed on the tree line, waiting. For what? I didn't know. Not for another rabbit. Not for the cougar. Just something. Some kind of confirmation. Until one morning, I stepped outside and saw him. A single puma cub, sitting near the edge of the clearing. Alone. He looked barely a few weeks old. His coat was mottled, ears too big for his head. But his posture was calm, steady, unafraid. It was as if he knew exactly where he was and why. He looked at me. I looked back. In front of him lay a small rabbit. Not dead, stunned maybe. Breathing, barely. Its little chest rose and fell rapidly, in shallow spurts. I didn't move. The cub nudged the rabbit gently forward, then stepped back. I crouched slowly, keeping my movements soft. "What are you doing here, little guy?" I whispered. He didn't answer, of course. Just sat there, tail twitching, eyes locked onto mine. It wasn't fear. It wasn't challenge. It was awareness. The rabbit lay still. I reached out and picked it up carefully, checking for wounds. Nothing major. It had been carried, not attacked. Its fur was wet from the cub's mouth, but intact. I glanced up. The cub was still there. "You're not lost, are you?" I said, and somehow, I knew he wasn't. I set the rabbit down in the tall grass. It twitched, then bolted into the woods. The cub didn't chase, didn't react at all, just watched. Then, after a few seconds, he turned and walked away. No rush, no fear, just like his mother. I stayed crouched there long after he was gone. It wasn't a coincidence. None of it was. This was a message, a gesture, one I didn't deserve, but had somehow earned. A few hours later, I found something else. Near the steps of my porch, the same towel I had wrapped the first rabbit in. Folded, clean, placed with care. I stared at it, stunned. No footprints, no signs of disturbance. Nothing but that simple square of fabric, sitting like a quiet signature. Just the towel. I sat on the steps, holding it in my hands. Soft, familiar. Ranger lay beside me, resting his head on my knee. I didn't cry. Not this time. Instead, I smiled. Because something told me they were safe. The mother, the cubs, the others. They weren't just wild animals anymore. They were part of something I couldn't name. Something ancient and real and unspoken. Something that stretched far beyond instinct and survival. I had stepped into their world for a moment. And somehow, they had accepted me. What I'd done, it wasn't heroic. It wasn't brave. It was just the right thing at the right moment. But to them, it had meant more. I don't pretend to understand their language, their systems, but I understand actions. I understand that a folded towel and a stunned rabbit mean more than words ever could. That night, I lit a fire behind the house. Not because it was cold, but because I wanted to mark something. Closure, maybe. Gratitude. Respect. I cooked dinner outside, some beans, a bit of deer sausage I'd frozen last month. Ranger sat beside me, ears perked toward the woods. He never barked, never growled, but he knew. I spoke aloud as I ate. Not to anyone, really, just to the air. "I don't know what you saw in me," I said, "but thank you for trusting me." The wind moved through the trees like a whisper. Not an answer, but maybe a nod. The next morning, the towel was gone. I don't know how they took it. There were no sounds, no movement, just absence. And that was enough. It's been a while since that day. I haven't seen the cub again, or the mother, or the big male. But sometimes, when I'm chopping wood or fixing the roof, I catch a glimpse of movement in the trees. A shadow, a shape that disappears before I can really look. And I know they're still out there. Not watching, not stalking, just being. That's the beauty of wild things. They don't owe you anything. They don't follow your rules. But when you show them respect, real respect, they remember. Nature remembers. It's not like people. It doesn't need applause or recognition. It just needs you to pay attention, to listen, to learn. and to know when to step back. Because sometimes the quietest moments say the most. Sometimes a stunned rabbit and a folded towel are the loudest messages of all. And I heard them, loud and clear,